In the ruins of once glorious Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex lie the remains of its inhabitants. Each one of them was once a work of art, an entertainer and a character in their own right, much more sentient than is commonly believed. Abandoned and forgotten, their carcasses are now a pitiful display of pain and decay, an echo of better days, a pile of sorrowful stories without a just ending. Stories about those for whom the opportunity to choose never existed, and for whom the future is now just an unlikely illusion. With the hope slowly fading away, the time has come to dive into the tragic events that has led us into this dusty place. This is the tale of Glamrock Animatronics. While the story of the animatronics will begin in the modern days, the story of the characters began with Edwin and Fiona Murrays. A genius and inventor, Edwin Murray was working on many different mascots throughout the years, with the help of his wife Fiona, who developed some of the designs. He became a contractor for Fazbear Entertainment, and the Murray's Costume Manor became the place of birth for the beloved characters. Jug-Band Monty and Jug-Band Hippo were original MCM characters, as well as Sleepy Moon, who even had a suit, and Dead-Eye Roxy, who at first was Puppet Roxy, made for David Murray's birthday. Edwin created a number of Springlock suits for Fazbear, one of which was Monty, but Fazbear Entertainment changed their mind, and Edwin had to create prototypes of the original four. After the MCM goes bankrupt and the disaster involving the Mimic happens, the property went to Fazbear Entertainment. Freddy Fazbear, Chica the Chicken, Bonnie the Bunny, and Foxy the Pirate became the faces of Fazbear brand as they planned, while Monty, Roxy, Hippo, and Moon were forgotten until another time. As time passed, the characters of Fazbear Entertainment became iconic, and had many different variations throughout their history. After Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place has burned down, and the memories of past events started to fade away, Fazbear Entertainment began rebuilding their reputation. As one of the ways of doing that, they forced a lonely developer to make games about dark events based on their past, so the public would begin to see it as myths and part of their brand. Since this attempt backfired, they gave the VR development and beta testing to Silver Parasol Games, and sent them old circuit boards with some code to speed up the process. Apparently these circuit boards contained some code of the Mimic program that possibly made its way here from the Murray's Costume Manor, and it manifested itself in the form of Glitch Trap, infecting Silver Parasol's systems like a virus. The program was searching for a way out of the VR world, and tried to possess some of the testers. Unbeknown to Fazbear Entertainment, this code would cause the downfall of the Pizzaplex years later, and the demise of those who couldn't do anything about its influence. As the construction of the Mega Pizzaplex began, Fazbear Entertainment decided to do a little bit of a change of style, to make their characters and environment more modern, and to distance themselves from their dark past even more. Freddy Fazbear, Chica the Chicken, and Bonnie the Bunny were all upgraded into their Glamrock versions and were still the main stage performers. Foxy the Pirate had places themed after him. He was now a small side character, and there was no animatronic version of him. It seems that Fazbear Entertainment took a look at the property they own, and their eyes have fallen on Dead-Eye Roxy, whom they had since the days they acquired Murray's Costume Manor. And so Roxanne Wolf was born, and the main floor of the Mega Pizzaplex was completed. Designs were one thing, but their programming was supposed to be on par with the time. It is suspected that Fazbear Entertainment again took a look at the Mimic program they got from the Murray's Costume Manor, and used it to create the AI for Glamrocks. The program could learn, imitate, and it's possible that at some point later it became sentient without even realizing it. By teaching the program with special courses and using behavior chips, Fazbear Entertainment gave the characters distinct personalities. Be it calm and reasonable Glamrock Freddy, competitive and boastful Roxanne Wolf, or kind and light-hearted Glamrock Chica, their characters were greatly helping Fazbear Entertainment to gather popularity. Despite being different from each other, each one had a variety of means to inspire the visitors to spend money, especially in the areas that they were assigned to, that being Roxy Raceway, Bakery, Bonnie Bowl, and Fuzzer Blast. Unfortunately, Fazbear Entertainment took it a step further, and programmed Glamrocks to have flows fitting their personalities to make them even more effective. The most noticeable of them were Chica's barely satiable appetite and Roxy's insecurity. But despite this, all four were polite with guests, were great performers, and quickly gathered high amounts of popularity. The priorities of the company were clear, and the neglectful attitude towards clients, staff and animatronics was slowly showing itself. But for now, the new era of Fazbear Entertainment and their Glamrock creations was starting well. After a while, seeing the success of their establishment, Fazbear Entertainment once again took a look at the old characters from Murray's Costume Manor. Their eye fell on Monty, and it wasn't long before a new animatronic appeared in the Pizzaplex, Montgomery Gator. Unlike others, his character traits were much harsher. His attraction was Monty's Maze, a place where he was playing a monster, while the visitors were trying to find an escape. This resulted in a more troublesome behavior, with occasional outbursts of anger, combined with Monty's ego. To add on the top, Monty didn't have a place in the main band, and that was slowly raising in him envy of the other animatronics, especially of Glamrock Bonnie. After this new addition to the roster, the first big trouble appears in the Pizzaplex in the face of the VIP, a rogue AI whose origins are unclear. It had a lot of influence on some of the Pizzaplex systems, but the animatronics were almost unaffected by it, even though they were aware of his presence. VIP was luring guests into the Pizzaplex with special invites and playing games with them. Losing meant you would never leave the Pizzaplex and slowly die. Until one day VIP lured into the Pizzaplex Devon and Ike, and Devon dealt with the VIP for good. Glamrocks were bystanders in his journey, and Devon had luck to witness them in their full glory. Glamrock Chica met him and his brother at the entrance, and while they found her a little bit frightening at first, she was the kindest of the group.
Glamrock Chica is standing nearby, mobbed by joyful kids. The 6-foot-plus white chicken's head swivels in your direction and her purple eyes look directly into yours. You can't help but shiver. You clear your throat. I thought she was your favorite. She's too big, Ike squeaks. Haven't you seen an animatronic before? They're harmless. Glamrock Chica suddenly sprints toward the entrance, closing the distance fast. Ike screams and covers his eyes. When she reaches your gate, she stops and says cheerfully, "Are you lost?" Okay, up close, Glamrock Chica is maybe a little scary. As scary as someone can be in a pink leotard and leg warmers. You hold up your VIP pass. This thing doesn't work. She stares at it curiously. "Oh, you must be Devon." She leans over the entry gate and looks down at Ike. "And you're Ike." Ike peeks out from between his fingers. "You know who I am?" Glamrock Chica straightens. "Of course. We're so happy you've come to have fun with us at the Mega Pizzaplex today. VIP is expecting you. Just insert your pass in a terminal over there." Ike puts his hands on top of the gate and looks up at Chica adoringly. "I like your bow," he says. Chica runs a hand over the 3 feathers on her head. "Thanks, kid. Hey, here's a hint that might help you later. If you get lost, just keep going left." She winks. You shrug and head towards a terminal. "See you later. Have fun," she says as she stomps off.
Glamrock Freddy played laser tag with Devon. Freddy took the loss well, and he clearly felt that something was wrong about the VIP. Luckily for Devon, he didn't shoot Freddy in the eyes, otherwise Freddy would glitch and hit him, something he would instantly regret and get Devon to the first aid. As Freddy would say,
"I do not know what came over me. I would never hurt you intentionally. None of the animatronics would. It goes against our very programming."
Roxanne Wolf was watching Devon racing from afar, and personally congratulated him on his victory, although she was annoyed that he was in a Chica's go-kart. She still gave him an autograph and wished him the best. Monty and his maze gave Devon the most troubles. Unlike others, Monty was a hunter, and he was good at scaring his prey. Devon had several ways of slowing Monty down, and it only showed how much Monty hated Glamrock Bonnie and everything related to him. Although losing in this game didn't mean you die, Monty could still hurt you accidentally.
He stalks slowly, halting periodically to listen. His breath rumbles low like a growl.
"Devon, I'm looking forward to meeting you,"
he whispers. He continues on past you and stops again. He reaches out and scrapes his claws down the wall you're leaning against. You feel the vibration in your bones. Why were they giving it to tame an animatronic such sharp claws? You stifle a cry and duck down. Finally, he moves on. Or so you thought. Suddenly, you're yanked into the air by the collar of your shirt. One of his claws scratches the back of your neck. The cut stings, and your eyes water.
Game over, kid.
Monty laughs. He carries you to the exit, your legs kicking.
But despite playing the role of a monster, after Devon won, Monty showed that not everything about him is so dark.
You choose the leftmost corridor and rush through it. At the end is a green door marked exit, while Monty is guarding it.
There you are.
He leaps and lands right in front of you. He draws his claw hand back and offers his hand to you. When you stop quivering, you shake his gargantuan hand.
Rock and roll. You win.
Monty, while having a more vicious nature, was still an entertainer. Later, Monty's maze was repurposed into famous Monty's Gator Golf.
This attraction does not have much replay value. A recent data mine shows that Fazbear Entertainment is considering repurposing Monty's maze into something else. Maybe miniature golf.
After the crisis with the VIP has been dealt with, for a while the life was much easier for Fazbear Entertainment. But this cannot be said about Glamrocks. A tragedy struck the Glamrock band, with the sudden disappearance of one of the classic members of the band, Glamrock Bonnie. The mystery of his disappearance was never uncovered. The main suspicion was cast at Montgomery Gator. Perhaps his jealousy and anger finally overcame him. What can be said for certain is that after this, Montgomery Gator was promoted to Bonnie's position in the band, while Fazbear Entertainment didn't do anything to restore Bonnie in any form. Despite the fact that visitors and his bandmates were dearly missing him, Fazbear Entertainment were hell-bent on forgetting Bonnie and erasing him from the Pizzaplex's history.
With Bonnie out of commission, we are making Monty the new bass player. Parts and Service has already done the proper adjustments. This could be a good thing. Monty could be even more popular than Bonnie. The bowling alley needs a retheme. While most of the Bonnie art was removed, kids keep asking, "Where's Bonnie?" Do we have an officially approved response?
The memories about Bonnie began to fade away, while those who knew him personally would still wonder about his fate, not knowing that the answer was much closer than they could ever guess. When Montgomery Gator was promoted, he was upgraded with clothes more suitable for the bass guitar. However, these clothes were much more destructive, a dangerous combination with Monty's temper. As the Mega Pizzaplex grew, there was a need for a place for small children, a place where parents could easily leave them for a while if needed. It wasn't long before the Superstar Daycare was built. Fazbear Entertainment has repurposed an old theater animatronic, who was seemingly based on the Sleepy Moon from the Murray's Costume Manor, to be a babysitter. But due to his previous role at the theater, this animatronic had an unusual problem.
The Sun Robot was an old stage animatronic. Part of his theatrical stick was to turn evil when the stage lights went off. When it was reprogrammed to be the daycare attendant, the performance functions were taken out, but the darkness trigger couldn't be removed. Apparently they had meetings about what to do, and they decided that fixing Sun was more trouble than it was worth. It was cheaper just to make sure the lights stay on. In its happy incarnation, the attendant was the Sun. That character had a somewhat deformed, round, grinning face surrounded by yellow triangles, clearly intended to mimic the rays of the sun. The Sun wore billowy red and yellow striped pants and was clown-like in his appearance and demeanour. But he had a dark side called the Moon, and the dark side was literally just that. If the lights went out in the daycare, the Sun morphed into a leering, moon-faced clown. The Moon would stalk around the daycare, scolding the children. "You've been very naughty."
Not only this transformation was changing his personality and frightening some of the children, but it was also painful. To make matters worse, the daycare had problems with light and had to rely on generators scattered across the place, and that was raising safety concerns. The daycare animatronic was named Sun or Sundrop, while his night counterpart was named Moon or Moondrop. The unwarranted transformations were leaving their mark on Sun, but he was still happy to deal with children, even if he could have been sometimes over-controlling. His moon side, while being creepy for some, was not dangerous, and so because it wasn't causing any lawsuits, Fazbear Entertainment decided not to deal with it and left Sun's split personality as it was. But his and other animatronics' behavior problems were only the tip of the iceberg. There was another animatronic who was brought into the modern days by Fazbear Entertainment, Mr. Hippo, but he wasn't so lucky. And for those who lost their use to Fazbear Entertainment, there was a special place. Abe, one of the lower class Fazbear Entertainment employees, was scavenging the sewers under the Pizzaplex, and made a horrifying discovery.
Whereas the storage level was kept clean and was brightly lit, this floor was a little more than an indoor landfill, and it was infested with wandering, wasted animatronics. Abe sucked in his breath when his flashlight's beam landed on one such animatronic. The pitiful remains of a Glamrock Chica, resting against the sewer's outer wall, blinked at Abe and raised a handless arm. The lower part of Chica's face was a gasping maw. The unblinking eye was staring upward. Gabe hurried past, trying to ignore the way Chica's head turned to follow his movement. He practically ran through the sewer, dodging past a small army of wandering endoskeletons and mutilated animatronics. As far as Abe knew, no human had ever been hurt by the roaming robots, but he wasn't taking any chances. Abe was almost at the end of a corridor when his flashlight's beam landed on a purple hippopotamus. It was a Mr. Hippo. Of all the animatronics, Mr. Hippo was his favorite. Abe thought of the hippo as a sort of grandfatherly character. Abe studied the unmoving hippo before him. Mr. Hippo was supposed to have blue eyes and 4 teeth on his bottom jaw. He was also supposed to have a black top hat. This Mr. Hippo's eyes were missing. So were the 2 teeth and his hat. Abe reached out and patted Mr. Hippo's shoulder. The hippo didn't move.
The truth behind Glamrock's existence was that while they were making bonds with each other and with some guests, all of them were just tools for Fazbear Entertainment. And a tool can always be replaced with a new one, without anyone's knowledge. It would just be discarded and replaced by a new copy. A copy who would think that it's the original, while the original was left to rot. Or, in case of Mr. Hippo, simply forgotten. Today, Glamrock Chica could be attending your birthday. Tomorrow, you would see her again, and neither of you would know that the Glamrock Chica who was at your birthday was abandoned to die, waiting for help that will never come. All their relationships with each other and with their visitors were built on that. How many times were they replaced without even knowing it? How many of them ended up in the sewers? How many times each one of them has died thinking that they are the one and only? The only saving grace for them and for everyone who knew them would be that nobody knew the truth. With time, Fazbear Entertainment began to cut losses. They decided to replace part of the creative team with the Storyteller 3, which had the Mimic program inside it. Edwin Murray, the creator of said program, knew that this would lead to a disaster, and was trying to prevent it. But his influence was very limited, and alas, the Storyteller has been connected to the Pizzaplex, and it wasn't long before Edwin would start noticing system failures and changes in the behavior of animatronics. Roxanne Wolf's confidence was crumbling, and she began humiliating others to feel better about herself.
Roxanne was a spectacle of sass and style. She was self-centered and competitive, loved to admire herself in the mirror, and frequently asked others how she looked. Edwin had never really liked her personality, but it was what Fazbear execs had wanted for the character, and it was what Edwin expected of Roxanne when he observed her interaction with the kids in her raceway. What he didn't expect, however, was the mean for the sake of being mean quality that he began to see in Roxanne when he hung around the raceway. Roxy had always enjoyed poking at people's insecurities because of her own deep-seated self-esteem issues, but when the Storyteller came online, she began verbally attacking anyone and anything around her. It was like her inherent lack of empathy was morphing into a more aggressive form of pathological cruelty.
Chica's sweet and helpful nature that could have been seen when she was talking to Devon and Ike was shifting towards annoying and egocentrical.
Chica's storylines nearly always included food. The chick loved pizza and was very pushy about getting it, but she was, on the whole, one of the more loving characters in the Fazbear Entertainment family. After the Storyteller came online, though, Chica began showing aggressive tendencies. Her loving persona was replaced with a snarky one. No longer interested in food, Chica became obsessed with getting attention.
Montgomery Gator now became a troublemaker, whose tantrums were mixed with depression.
He was all about being a rock and roller, prone to smashing things as part of his extravagant image. Monty was always dramatic, but he had been harmless, at least until the Storyteller started messing with him. Monty's rampages became more violent, and in between tantrums, he withdrew into a depressive silence that was actually driving children to tears.
Glamrock Freddy has turned into a spoiled child, bickering with children over toys and crying if things weren't going his way.
All the Pizzaplex's other main characters began to undergo similar personality shifts. Whatever trait was normal for them began to skew toward the dark side.
Such a drastic shift in animatronic personalities was a road to a disaster. Edwin attempted to prevent the mimic program from causing any more damage and paid with his life. Luckily, the Storyteller tree was dismantled, but the relief didn't last long. It is somewhere at this time where Glitchtrap finally got inside the Pizzaplex, not without the help of his unwilling followers. Gregory, while being GGY, has added Glitchtrap's code to the animatronics, making them compliant and changing them in a more sinister way than the Storyteller did.
The techs have been struggling to fix some serious glitches with the robots. I'm not sure what exactly is wrong, except that it's making the robots more eerie than entertaining. You like that? Eerie instead of entertaining?
One of the things I was poking into was the Pizzaplex animatronics code. I was curious about how their behaviors were chosen, just for fun. But when I was looking at the code, I spotted some strange lines that didn't seem original to the programming. The new lines of code created additional conversations and behaviors in Glamrock Freddy, Chica, Roxy, and Monty, stuff that wasn't in the legitimate coding. Embedded in those lines of code are seemingly random G's and Y's.
On the surface, they could still appear normal, until Glitchtrap would need otherwise. They were slowly turning into mindless puppets, and GGY was using them to spy on those who was suspecting something was off, and to get rid of people when necessary.
Tony looked up into the gleaming white eyes of the big orange animatronic bear, Glamrock Freddy. Thinking that Freddy was just being friendly, Tony lifted a hand and waved at the bear. Freddy, however, didn't return the gesture. He just kept his intense gaze on Tony. Suddenly, chilled for reasons he didn't understand at all, Tony looked away from Freddy and hurried on. After a few more steps, Tony glanced over his shoulder. Glamrock Freddy was still watching him. Goosebumps popped up on Tony's bare arms as he practically ran out of the Faz-K.
GGY befriended a girl named Cassie, who was easy to manipulate. Sadistic by nature, GGY decided to have some fun and lured Cassie into the Pizzaplex, blocking her escapes and forcing Glamrocks to hunt her. Cassie had a rich history with the animatronics in the Pizzaplex. She was a fan of this place, her father was working here, and she always had a good time in the daycare. Her biggest connection was with Roxy, who was the only one who attended Cassie's birthday when everyone else abandoned her. Roxy became her idol, and they became important figures in each other's lives. While GGY was toying with Cassie, she nearly died because of Monty.
I'm gonna fight. Monty's head suddenly jerks to one side as if an electrical shock hits him. Find you. Monty doesn't sound or look right. His body is twitching in a way you've never seen before. Suddenly, a cleaning drone buzzes by. Drawn to the movement, Monty whips around, his tail colliding with the bot, which goes flying.
While GGY was trying to get Monty under control, or was just pretending, the twitching is a possible sign of a struggle against Glitchtrap, a possible sign that Monty was not yet fully lost. After this dark experience with Monty, Cassie encountered Reagent and was saved by Roxy. However, Roxy herself was part of GGY's plan, and together GGY, Freddy and Roxy played a cruel prank on Cassie. While Freddy was sharing with GGY the sadistic satisfaction from the prank, Roxy appeared to be confused and ashamed. GGY's grasp on her was not strong enough, at least not yet. Together with Cassie, she found out that GGY has tampered with her programming and that she is being instructed to kill Cassie. Roxy was resisting the orders, but the time was short. Her voice began to change, and the light from her eyes was slowly turning red. Glitchtrap loved to play with his victims, so Cassie had to beat him at the minigame he has thrown at her in order to reprogram Roxy in time. Together they disposed of Reagent and Cassie left the place alive. Despite Cassie's efforts, Glitchtrap would get Roxy under his control again. The disappearances in the Pizzaplex continued, while the animatronics were suffering and losing themselves more and more. Sun was becoming afraid of himself. His moon counterpart was becoming creepier and creepier. Monty was now often skipping his performances and hiding on the catwalks, away from everyone and everything. He even had an accident where he fell from there and was severely damaged, but he kept coming back there, possibly seeking solace. Chica received a test upgrade of her voice, but it failed. Now she was prohibited to sing, a devastating strike to a character like her. Her obsession with food was getting worse, either because of Glitchtrap or because the stress was becoming unbearable. Digging through the trash became a routine. Afraid that Chica would fall into the trash compactor, Fazbear Entertainment had to relay a message to their employees to double-check the compactor before using it.
All food materials must be securely stored at closing. Chica has been caught eating from the kitchen garbage after hours. The maintenance repairs are costly and will come out of kitchen staff paychecks. Parts and Service is concerned that Chica will suffer heavy damage if she ever gets caught in the trash compactor. Always double-check the compactor before use. Horrible results when she sang during live performance. Staff bots dropping trays, chaos, guest injuries, 12 lawsuits. Experimental voice box test failed. Replacement advised.
Roxy was given new upgraded eyes. The eyes were meant to help her win races, but a possible side effect of this is that now she was a cheater in her own eyes. Her already low self-esteem was now hurt even more. She now could see through walls, and perhaps those eyes gave her the ability to see the dark secrets of Parts and Service, revealing the truth that she is not unique and that the failure could mean oblivion. The raceway itself was closed because of the construction works, and Roxy had nowhere to go. In anger, she was destroying staff bots who were doing test runs of the road. Cassie's father would also notice changes, seeing how uncontrollable Chica's appetite is and how aggressively Roxy seeks attention. The Glamrocks were now compromised more than ever, and only a direct intervention could save them from a disaster. But alas, this is not how the story will unfold. Gregory has escaped the clutches of Glitchtrap and came back to his senses. He saw what everyone else saw. The Glamrock band doing their usual performance, enjoying the spotlight. Possibly one of the few opportunities for them to forget the troubles that were pursuing them. Freddy glitched out, most likely due to him being a prototype. The last thing he saw before blacking out was Chica rushing to check on him. The concert was ruined and Glamrocks were sent back to Rockstar Row. While Freddy was turned off, someone disconnected him from the Pizzaplex, and later Gregory got inside his chest cavity. Without Glitchtrap, Freddy was finally able to think for himself, and for his luck he didn't remember what GGY made him do. Without hesitation, Freddy agrees to help Gregory. Glitchtrap, through the hands of Vanessa, tried to find Gregory, but he was yet to use Glamrocks. Roxy, after showing off at the stage, was looking in the mirror and reassuring herself. Monty, probably unsatisfied that the concert is over, was trashing his own room, while Chica, being an innocent soul, calmly enjoyed playing the guitar. Vanessa was on the hunt alone, and tried to get Freddy back to his room, not knowing that he already helps Gregory, and displaying the usual treatment the Glamrocks face here.
Now go back to your room.
Not having any luck in finding Gregory, Glitchtrap activated other Glamrocks, and the situation became dire both for Gregory and for them. Chica was still getting distracted by her hunger, and Roxy found herself in the wrong part of the utility tunnels. But Monty spotted Gregory, and so the hunt began. After some close calls, Gregory reached the daycare. He met Sun, who seemed to be unaffected by Glitchtrap, but he could witness for himself how much Sun has become afraid of Moon, and the reason for his fear was justified. The light went out, and Moon turned out to be as dangerous as the rest.
Naughty boy. It's past your bedtime. You must be punished.
It seems that even while Glitchtrap had control over animatronics, all of them were still able to distract themselves from hunting Gregory. Moon was given priority to cleaning, Chica was searching for food for garbage, Roxy was given priority to talking to herself, while Monty at one point again tried to find solitude on the catwalks. After seeing how all of them behave, Freddy clarified that this is abnormal. Perhaps if he had pushed this idea a bit further, he could have saved them. But after such horrifying night, Gregory had enough, and now he was searching for ways to dispose of Freddy's friends. Freddy, after so many years, was still reminiscing about Glamrock Bonnie. Losing even more connections would be a terrible strike. But because of his naive nature, he becomes an accomplice in Gregory's endeavors. Suffering a beating from Moon and threats from Vanessa, Freddy saw the ender section of Parts and Service and asked a question that shows how he and other Glamrocks are much more complicated than they appear to be.
Have I always been a Freddy? Am I Monty with a different shell? What if I am not the first Glamrock Freddy? Are there more of me at other pizzerias? Do we all feel the same? Am I special? If I am mass-produced, am I still art?
Freddy was opposed Gregory's idea of doing any harm to other Glamrocks, but the walls were closing in. Gregory decided to act and used their weaknesses against them. Monty was crushing everything in his path. Roxy cried and desperately wanted to prove herself. Moon stalked the halls every hour. Chica was losing her mind between Glitchtrap and her hunger, sometimes crying when she was close to catching Gregory. A cry for help that was never heard. Monty fell to his demise, cut in halves. What was left of his sanity was now lost after that. Chica ended up in the sewers, voiceless, barely able to control her body after being crushed by the trash compactor. Roxy was smashed by a go-kart and burned. She lost her eyes and beauty and now was more desperate than ever, as the realization of what that could mean for her was sinking in.
I am still beautiful. Everybody still loves me, right? I just need a little work done.
In the last hour of the night, the only sounds that could have been heard in the halls of the Pizzaplex were Monty's weak growling, Chica's glitching attempts to talk, and Roxy's pitiful cries. Glamrock Freddy helped Gregory to free Vanessa from Glitchtrap and distracted everyone long enough, nearly dying in the process. All that was left of him was his head, that Gregory and Vanessa took with them, while Freddy's broken body was left in the phaser blast. The night ends with Gregory leaving the Pizzaplex and with Tangle causing a destruction of the building, sealing the fates of its inhabitants. Fazbear Entertainment tried to rebuild the establishment, spending a lot of resources. But there was no attempt to help their animatronic performers, and after a while they stopped the reconstruction altogether. Cassie's father later goes through the ruined Pizzaplex and sees some of the ruined animatronics and how pitiful they became.
I'm not a monster! You could never understand! It's not working!
You shouldn't be here. Please, just leave me alone. You can make crafts, but then you need to go. I'm perfectly fine where I am. It's better this way. It's safer this way.
But his skills are limited, and it is most likely that repairing them wasn't his priority, since Glitchtrap was still a threat that must have been dealt with. Meanwhile, Gregory, most likely with the help of Vanessa and Freddy's head, returned to the Pizzaplex. Together they uncovered the remnants of the pizza place and the Mimic Endo, a possible puppeteer behind Glitchtrap. They trapped him and used the Mix's security system that Fazbear Entertainment has taken from the Murray's costume manor. After that, Gregory and Vanessa safely left the place once again, leaving some of the animatronics to do the bidding of Mixes, and to their terrible fates. Sun was stuck in the darkness of the daycare, completely lost to Moon. Monty was scaredly crawling around, losing the remaining distinctive colors he had. Chica, unable to satisfy her hunger, was in a constant cycle of consuming everything eatable she could find, covering her body in grease. Freddy's headless body was mindlessly wreaking havoc in the Father Blast. Bonnie's eyes still glowed in the dark, awaiting for his mystery to be solved. While Roxy was aimlessly sitting in her saloon, blaming herself, still planning how to find Gregory. Most likely it will never be known for how long they were stuck in this place, but the word long will not do justice to the amount of time Glamrocks have spent in their painful conditions. The Mimic wasn't planning to sit in the underground forever, and he sent out a signal, luring Cassie to the ruined Pizzaplex with a cry for help, pretending to be Gregory. The Glamrocks' last hope was approaching. The main lobby of the Pizzaplex was covered in various graffiti by people who once loved this place. Most of them probably didn't even know that Glamrocks were still here, as it required to venture much deeper, something that Cassie had to do, and she encountered every single one of them. First, barely functioning Chica, who was unsurprisingly in the kitchen. Then she found the Vanny mask and angry and scared Monty. Dodging him, she got into the IKEA, a place that has special meaning to her. Thanks to the mask, in the daycare she can see the struggle son endures, his fight with Moon for control over his own body.
I am trapped in a gap! Reboot! We need to be whole!
You want me to reboot you? With this?
Naughty! Lights on! Lights on! Turn generators on!
She activated the lights and helped him by merging his personalities into Eclipse, a combination of both. But this fix had a price, and now Eclipse was unaware of his dire situation. Ignorance is a bliss.
Happy birthday! Warning, warning! Child in danger! Safety mode active. Little girl, you can't be in here. It's dangerous. I need to clean up before we can open in the morning. Oh, this place will be flooded with kids. Come back soon and have a Fazerific day. Thank you.
Cassie had to leave him in the daycare until better times, or until he will run out of power. Continuing her quest and exploring once glorious attractions, the mask makes Cassie hear some of the voices of Glamrocks, echoes of various times of the past.
I am just trying to help her. You're safe with me. Where are you?
Chica ran out of power and was painfully zapped back into consciousness, only to continue suffering her hunger. Avoiding her, but finding Chica's voice box in an arcade, Cassie reached the beauty salon, the place where her favorite was still residing, devoid of purpose and lost in her despair. Roxy was barely recognizable, her shell was severely damaged. Being very cautious, Cassie lost the moment to approach her, and Roxy ran off to the raceway, searching for Gregory after hearing his voice on the speaker, hoping to get her eyes back.
Poor Roxy.
Who's there? You can't hide from me. Gregory.
Cassie was interrupted from following her by Mixis and Chica, but Chica was not much of a problem anymore. She stumbled into a bathroom, probably searching for a place to die. She leaned against the wall and lost her remaining power. Cassie gave her voice box back to her, trying to grant Chica a possible relief before leaving. Chica regained consciousness for a moment and then fell back into blissful oblivion.
I smell pizza!
Roxy blindly ran through the closed attraction teamed after Foxy, stumbling and leaning at the walls, hitting a bucket of paint on the way to Raceway and leaving a trail. Cassie followed her, and from the ceiling fell Monty. He submerged into the water and, ironically, played the role of an alligator. While trying to escape, Cassie accidentally powered up a Bonnie sign. Monty got electrocuted, and just like that, Monty drowned with all the rage and possible regrets he had. One could say that Bonnie finally avenged himself. Cassie followed Roxy through the raceway, and Roxy accidentally almost killed her by the end of it. But recognizing Cassie's voice, she remembered who she was.
Sorry.
Cassie was able to awaken Roxy from the horrors of past months, or possibly years. Separated from each other, Cassie took a detour for Bonnie Ball, where in one of the closed-off sections she found the hidden remains of Glamrock Bonnie, with some indications that he indeed was broken by Monty. For mysterious reasons, his eyes were still lit, and he appeared to be connected to the floorboards of the Pizzaplex. Cassie disabled them and Bonnie's eyes went dark. She was able to finally put to the rest the mystery of his disappearance. The Bonnie Ball is connected to Fuzzy Blast, and it wasn't long before Cassie saw the wreckage that Glamrock Freddy's headless body has made here. It appeared to be hostile, but it could be that it tried to hide Cassie inside its chest cavity in a twisted attempt to protect her, as this is the way Glamrock Freddy would protect Gregory. These remains couldn't be reasoned with, and there was nothing Cassie could do to help them, so she had to leave them to wander the ruins of Fuzzy Blast. Roxy, finally in her own mind, was stuck under the forklift, and the mimic deceived Cassie into deactivating her. But before doing that, they got a chance to reminisce about the past, even if just for a moment.
Your special day. I remember. Your special day. Do you still like carrot cake? It has been some time since I saw you last. If I remember correctly, it is on the 11th. I remember because you are number 1, twice. Have you booked your party? I'm sure your friends will show up this time. Cassie? What are you doing?
So sorry.
I love carrot cake. Happy birthday, Cassie.
From Roxy's point of view, the last thing she saw was betrayal, and yet in her final seconds she still tried to comfort Cassie. Heartbroken, Cassie continues her way down into the abyss alone. But Roxanne Wolf could not be stopped so easily. There still was one last thing to tend to. The apparent deactivation was just a reboot, or it deactivated the security node inside her. And now, either by the guidance of Mixes, or out of her own iron will, Roxy was following Cassie, to save her from the one who was responsible for most of the pain inflicted upon them. She lunged at the mimic, giving her all to protect Cassie, screaming her to run.
Cassie!
The Mimic was stronger than any Glamrock, and Roxy was already in a very bad shape. It wasn't a question how she could win, it was a question how much time she could buy. Cassie had enough time to contact Gregory and plan an escape. And the last thing that could be heard is how the Mimic tries to copy Roxy's voice and mocks her, before a loud thud ends the fight, presumably deactivating Roxy for certain this time. The last light of the Mega Pizzaplex went dark. This was the tale of...
This was the tale of Sun.
This was the tale of Glamrock Chica.
This was the tale of Montgomery Gator.
This was the tale of Glamrock Bonnie.
This was the tale of Glamrock Freddy.
This was the tale of Roxanne Wolf.
This was the tale of Glamrock Animatronics.